Hi, we're Shannon and Jerry Arner.
And our dog, Betty White.
Your hosts of the Arner Adventures podcast.
Could we have named it something more creative? Probably. But it's the name of our blog. It's our last name. We're on an adventure. Yada, yada, yada. After owning our own business, working 24/7.
And don't forget a mental breakdown in between.
We made a lifestyle change and decided to make the most out of life.
We sold our house, most of our belongings, downsized, and moved to the coast.
We live life minimally, but fully.
We live each day as an adventure.
This show will help you learn how to live life more fully, with more intention, by experiencing more, and with less stuff.
We'll talk about our own experiences, interview others who have much to share by creating a spark in our lives.
Some days we'll share real-life ongoings of what we're going through, and others will talk about our favorite flavor of waffle.
Come join our adventure.
It's the Arner Adventures Podcast. Hello, everyone. I'm Jerry.
And I'm Shannon.
Betty White, our little white furry gal, is snoring right here beside us, and we're back with episode 23 of the Arner Adventures Podcast.
Yep. Today we have a Spark in Our Lives episode with a really wonderful guest. But first, let's get to our review of the week.
Today's review comes from Ald for sure.
I think it's Al D for sure.
It is Al D.
Kind of like Al B. I don't know. I'm going to go with Al D for sure. Not Ald. I don't know. Maybe. Let's go with Al D, but let's just call him Al.
Let's call him Al.
Okay. You want to go with what Al says, or you want me to?
I'll go with what Al says.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did Al say?
Al said, I'm sorry, I had a Paul Simon reference in there, but well, anyway, let's move on with it.
Okay.
You can call me Betty, and you can call me
Al.
Al. Or, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, back to it. Great show. Positive, motivating. Each week is really a new adventure between their travels and their guests. Really enjoy listening while I drive home from work. Look forward to new episodes each week.
Thank you, Al. That is wonderful to hear. We love contributing in a positive way, especially on a work drive, right?
Right.
Right. Well, thank you for taking the time to give us the review and for your feedback and for listening. And thank you all for listening.
If you'd like to be our review of the week and get the chance to receive a gift from Sugar Wish, please take a moment and give us a 5-star review or rating.
We have an easy link for you all to follow. It's lovethepodcast.com/Arner Adventures, but no worries. We're going to link it for you in the show notes. It helps us so much to support us in that way and keeps us motivated and amped to keep things going, to bring you exciting guests like the one we have for you today.
And while you're at it, be sure to hit that subscribe button in the platform you're listening to us on, so you'll be sure to be notified each time we have an episode drop.
Well, let's get to today's guest. Our guest today is Lindsey Konchar. She is a former social worker who created a website called Coping with Lindsey, and she just wrote a book called, get this, I Got 99 Coping Skills and Being a Bitch Ain't One. I mean, come on, right?
How can you resist that?
Right.
And with May being Mental Health Awareness Month, we are continuing our guests who are giving us all the tools we need to help along the way. And this guest is another perfect example of that.
Yeah. Well, let's just get to the episode.
Let's get to it.
It's not often that you find someone who can make mental health fun. And this guest does that, and we are here for it. We love bringing mental health into the regular conversation, of course, and our guest does such a great job of it. Our guest is Lindsey Konchar. Lindsey is a licensed graduate social worker, which basically means that she brings some credentialed experience to the mental health world. Lucky for us. Now she is a mom by day and a social worker by heart. While she has been thrilled to be a stay-at-home mom, she knew she couldn't lose who she was along the way. That was vital to her. She found a way to use the clinical skills she had developed into her practice, hold on to the work she loves so much, and write a freaking book. Those are her words. It's called, and this is the best book title ever, I Got 99 Coping Skills and Being a Bitch Ain't One. The book is a quippy, evidence-based guide to help individuals find better, healthy coping skills. We all know that life can be unimaginably challenging. It brings stress and grief, anxiety and angst, but that doesn't mean we should lose hope. by using the small, simple, actionable steps in I Got 99 Coping Skills and Being a Bitch Ain't One. I love saying that title. You can find what uniquely works for you to optimize your life. Lindsey is going to tell us all about it, and we couldn't be more excited for her to be here. Lindsey, thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We are, like I said, we love anyone who can make the whole topic of conversation about mental health, but also make it fun. And the title of your book, obviously, makes it fun.
It's supposed to be. I'm like, yeah, it can be just like such a daunting and overwhelming and just like shadowed topic. And I'm like, we don't need it to be. Like, it can be like, it doesn't have to be so scary, you know? So good. I'm
Right.
so happy that you love the title.
And I love saying it. So I'm going to say it as much as I can. Where are you currently?
I am in Minnesota and it's finally lovely here and I'm so
Mm-hmm.
happy about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Last time I spoke to you, you were in Florida. So I
Mhm.
figure you must be a globetrotter. So I like to get the feel of kind of what we're dealing with and, picture of where you are.
Yes, I'm
So,
safe back home.
so you're in Minnesota and you don't have to tell us exactly where you are, but we are big Golden Girls fans in this household. So how close are you to St. Olaf?
I'm actually 40 minutes away, give or
Okay.
take. Yeah, I'm pretty
Okay.
close, so I know. One of our
Yeah.
claims to fame, that and Prince, we're just really
Oh,
crushing
that's
it over here.
right. That's right. The
Yeah,
purple palace. What is
we
this?
have
What is this
really
house called?
Paisley Park.
Paisley Park. Yeah, Jerry would
Mhm.
kill me for not knowing that. But yeah.
That's
Yeah,
okay. We've
Paisley Park.
really taken the Prince thing far over here. You can't
Mhm.
drive 20 miles without seeing 12 murals, so we're
Right.
proud
Right.
Prince people. Purple Rain all the way.
Yeah. I would definitely claim that if I could. So that's awesome. Well, before we get into the book, I want to talk about your website because it's called Coping with Lindsey. And you talk about life, the stressors that come along with it, sort of what the book is about. Beyond mental health, you mention staying true to the intersections of who you are, what you care about, like motherhood, environmentalism, and financial freedom, which we love. And I wanted to point out, again, along the lines of that humor, and I cracked up when I saw the blog post. And we don't have kids, and maybe that's another reason that I thought this was so funny. The blog post that the title is called Five Shitty Things to Know About Babies.
I know. I was like, I mean, when I became a mom, I was like, there's just so much poop, and people just don't even. I mean, you just don't even know. And frankly, like there are shitty things about babies, so people need to know. And that's kind of, I mean, my whole angle on pretty much anything I do, like personally, professionally, which are really just one big overlap, is just, I mean, you gotta like have fun with it, and it's just the reality of life. Sometimes isn't all butterflies and rainbows. Sometimes there's shitty things about babies or whatever.
Right,
So, yeah,
right. And I'm guessing that that's also something they don't tell you is is how
not at
much
all.
shit you're gonna have to deal with, literally and figuratively. And then also under your About Me page, you say, I encompass a basic bitch starter pack, Starbucks, fall, juicy tracksuits, all of it.
Just count me in. I know. I'm just like the poster child for basic, all things basic. Like I do. I just like come September, you can find me with a warm pumpkin spice latte in hand, probably trucking along to the apple orchard. Like the winery with and I'm like totally the girl like in the hat, in the scarf, in the dress, like everyone knows what I look like because I'm a very average looking woman. I just look, it's just very that's just who I am. So why not just
You're the
throw it out there from the get-go?
you're the poster child for the Starbucks pumpkin latte Instagram photo.
I am. Like, can they sponsor me yet? It's just
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Oh my God. Well, I think the whole vibe is great. It's hilarious. And I love the whole vibe of mental health, like we talked about. And again, when anyone can normalize the conversation, reduce the stigma, make it funny, lighter, bringing humor to it. I love it. Okay.
Good.
So where does the whole passion for mental health come from? Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, so like I said, so for me, it's very much like my personal life has shaped my professional life in every single way, shape, and form. And I think that's true for like a lot of mental health practitioners or just anybody kind of in that field. And so not always, but for the most part, I would say everyone kind of has their story. And mine was just really like we had, a pretty good childhood, and then my parents went through this awful, awful divorce. They were in a custody battle for 3 years, and it just was a very all-consuming time for them, and both just I mean, they just kinda drug each other through the mud, like, one thing after another, really petty stuff, and then at that same time, my maternal aunt, was diagnosed with breast cancer, and so it just got really, really heavy, it seemed, and seemingly pretty quickly. It was just my mom kinda lost herself in that time and just really plummeted into a pretty deep depression, and my dad was kind of like now he's a single dad, he has to do all the things that mom's kinda taken care of forever, and so, both of them, it was just it was a really hard time, and then so this was during high school, I was when the divorce finalized, I was 15.
Okay, I was gonna ask
They
how old
filed
were you? Okay.
yeah, yep. So they filed when I was 12, finalized when I was 15, and then I found myself in a really abusive relationship. And it's high school, so there's hormones and there's big changes in even a minute thing feels so catastrophic at that time. And
Mhm.
and and I don't want to minimize that. I think that's a phase that we go through, and I think it's really important to feel those feelings. But my partner at the time was very like controlling, and I couldn't hang out with any of my friends, and so I lost a lot of really good people in my life at that time too, and it got to a point where it was so dark that I actually made a whole plan to take my own life.
Mm.
Um, and I was 16 at the time, and so it was just and I did, and it was I mean, I was almost about to follow through with it, and then I actually called myself out of school that day, fake sick, and then I went to my mom's house, and she happened to stay home from work that day, just totally coincidence. I went up to my room and I was like, "Well, I'm not gonna do this when somebody else is home," and so I didn't
Oh,
follow through
wow.
with it, and so that was just a really big U-turn for me, and I really kinda sat on it and thought about it and was like, "No, there are people that would care that I that I wasn't here anymore, and there are," and so kinda from that day forward, it was just like, I don't wanna feel that way ever again, I don't wanna be in such a dark place, and then it was actually the following semester that I took my first psychology class. I was like eyes wide open, like, "This is so cool, brain and behavior and just all this stuff is amazing," and so it was just so apparent to me, like, I'm going to college and I'm going to school for psych, and that was just for sure my path, and then I became really, really close with my school counselor. She was one of, like, the saving graces in my life at that time. She she was actually the one that was like, "When I'm old and gray, I want you to take my job, like, I think you would be a perfect fit for
Oh,
school
wow.
counseling." Yeah, really, really awesome. She was just a very, very supportive person, and I just, like, loved her so much, and she did so much for me, and that's when I was kinda like, "No, like, I don't wanna do that," but then I got to college, and I was like, "Yeah, I do wanna do that." Um, and not to say, it's been all, like, great and easy since then, but it was kind of like that was, like, probably the darkest time for me, and then I didn't go into school counseling, but that's when I discovered social work,
Mhm.
which I didn't know about until way later in life after I graduated. So I graduated with a bachelor's in psychology, and then
Okay.
I did AmeriCorps, so it's like the National
Yeah,
Peace Corps. Yeah, I did
yeah,
that for a year working in a school, and then I came back and I was actually working at an inpatient psychiatric hospital, and it
yeah.
was a really awesome experience. A lot of integrative team, doctors, nurses, therapists, I mean, everyone. And the social workers there actually pulled me aside and they were like, "You can't go," because I was getting my master's, and they were like, "You need to switch programs. You can't go to school and just become a school counselor." Not just, but just they were like,
Yeah.
there's not room for growth as much as there's like lateral movement in that career. But they were like, you need to be a social worker. There's just a lot of opportunity, a lot of different settings and populations, and it's just a little bit more expansive. And so I withdrew out of my school counseling program and simultaneously applied for social work, and I got in, and then the rest is history. I got my master's in social work, and then I was practicing for a while. So here we
I'm
are. That was a really
guessing
long.
I'm guessing too that they could see that you had skills that, would better fit with that role. Did you ever regret not going the other way, or were you always happy going the route that you did?
I just didn't realize that social workers could be in schools, because for me, it was like I had a school counselor, and then there was like psychologists that do like the testing, school psychologists. But I, there's not one bone in my body that regrets what I did.
Oh, that's
It felt
awesome.
so right. And as soon as I was in that social work program, I had such a good experience. My cohort, my peers, my professors, I mean, everyone, it was just such a good fit for me. And
Yeah.
I couldn't have been happier that those, I mean, literally 3 women pulled me aside, and they're like, "All right, we're gonna go have coffee. We're gonna explain to you the differences." Like, and they were great. And we did, and we sat down, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, you're right. This feels way better." And now I'm just like, it is so a part of me, and I'm so happy about it. Yeah.
When you first went in, were you, because you came from, this experience of firsthand knowing what that dark place was like, and so then you go into social work to help people, and um when did you go in automatically knowing that humor was sort of a way to get people talking, or did that come at another point? Like, have you always been like that?
Yeah, I think I've always kind of brought humor into like whatever it is I'm doing. I feel like I'm a pretty like lighthearted person in general, and I'm just a little like I'm a pretty positive person, and a pretty, but like I said before, it's like, but there are hard times, and I don't want to
Yeah,
ever like dismiss that or minimize it, but it
right.
doesn't always have to be just so heavy.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I think, yeah, so and that's just a part of who I am. And that's one of the things we talk about in a program like that is when you're going into the, say traditional one-on-one therapy, which I've done outpatient therapy, I've done some different integrative work in clinics and what have you, but just for people's like visual, if you're thinking about a therapist coming in and talking with you, they are totally bringing in their personality along with, we're not just like these blank slates with
yeah,
nothing to, right? Like, we're not just a listening ear. And of course, that's a big part of who we are. But there's so much more that we're bringing. We're bringing in our own experiences, and we're bringing in our own biases. And so there's just so much that's brought in with us. And a part of that is our personality. It's our demeanor. It's our mannerisms. It's all of that. And so I've just been very clear with, any of my patients that like this is who I am, and we're gonna have some fun during it, and we're gonna try and figure it out. And there's a time and a place, of course, and but like, yeah, I mean, it just like it doesn't have to be like a dreadful like, oh, I have therapy today, and
yeah.
stuff like that. I want it to be just like a conversation, a fun kind of experience for people. So yeah, I think I've always kind of brought that, and I talk about that in my book a little bit too. It's like my who I am is brought into this book too. It's like my heart and soul is poured into it, and I want people to see the whole gamut of who I am and feel that fun and feel that, but also feel the seriousness, and just kind of play off each other.
Yeah. You've all heard us rave about Sugar Wish. I don't think there's a day that passes where I'm not telling somebody about it.
Sugar Wish is definitely one of those businesses where you ask yourself, why didn't I think of that?
How many times have you wanted or needed to send a gift to someone, and it was either one, last minute, or two, you didn't want to send just another gift that's going to lay around and take up space?
Or you just didn't have any idea what to get the person. Sugar Wish allows you to send a sweet gift to someone, and the recipient gets to choose their favorites.
We've received Sugar Wish gifts and sent Sugar Wish gifts, and they are always a hit. You cannot go wrong. It's super easy. You go to the website, sugarwish.com, choose the size of the gift you want to send, enter a personalized message and note tailored to the person you're sending it to. It arrives to that person or pup via email or text. The recipient then gets your message and then chooses what they want.
They have so many options to choose from: candies, cookies, popcorn, snacks, tea, coffee, wine. Yes, wine. And Betty's fave, dog treats. Betty gets to choose from crunchy, chewy, jumbo, and training
It's
treats.
perfect for your fur baby or the dog lover in your life. Use code Betty White, that's all caps, one word, Betty White, to save $7 off of your Sugar Wish gift. We also have the link in the show notes. Sugar Wish always saves the day. Well, what led you out of social work then? Because it sounds like it was great and it was a perfect fit. So how did you get out of it?
Yes, I'm still like it was a really hard transition for me, but when COVID happened, I was pregnant actually with our first baby. At the time after I graduated, I was working at that integrative health clinic and I loved what I was doing. I loved the people. It was just such a good fit for me. But when COVID happened, this was like, I mean, literally like right away. So my husband and I were both furloughed, and then the clinic started bringing people back to work, and we were going to start seeing COVID patients. Because I was pregnant, I would have definitely gone back if I hadn't been pregnant and done that, but we just didn't feel comfortable with me seeing and being exposed while pregnant, especially at that time when we didn't know how severe it was. It was like, I mean, that
Yeah.
was like when everything was ending, right? Like it's gotten a little less heavy at this point, but that was when I became a stay-at-home mom in my pregnancy, and then she was born, and it's just been a good fit for me to be home with her. It was a really, really hard transition. I had like probably 10,000 identity crises every day because I loved my career so much and because I was like, I've worked so hard for this and I do love it. And there is without a doubt in my mind, I will go back, I'm sure, in some capacity and work. And I'm still dabbling in things like I'm on the board of directors for a nonprofit that started last year. And I host our connect groups and different things like that. So I'm still like, it's still a
Very
part of me
involved.
without, yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
And for now, it's just I get to be a stay-at-home mom to my baby, and it's been a very fun. She's like so fun. She's amazing. So that's been good too. But yeah, it was a really hard thing for me because I don't think a lot of people can like totally say like they love, love, love what they did. But I just feel
Yeah.
like I said before, it's like nurses kind of, it's a good like
Yeah.
depiction. It's like being a nurse is like part of who you are. It's like not everybody maybe in like sales or something can say
Yeah.
like, "Oh yes, I am a sales buyer." And maybe they can. I don't know. It just yeah. So yeah. So that's how
And
I
not
kind of
everyone
transitioned out.
leaves their role and still I mean, you're licensed, of course you are, but
Hmm.
not everyone leaves it and still says they are that. And
Right.
you do, which is
Hmm.
great, you know?
Hmm.
Some people are like, "No, no, no, I don't even wanna claim that anymore." And you still do. And when you say you're a social worker at heart, I mean, I love that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So okay, so you come home and you're dealing with these different roles and so what bells go off and say, I'm gonna write a freaking book?
Yeah. Yeah. No, great question. So that was, it was a part of the transition for me. It was like, constantly, and I'm like, if you haven't gathered by this point, I am like a total extrovert. I like love people. I love being like out in the world and, whatever. And my husband is like the polar opposite of me. He's like, he
Mhm.
would love nothing more than to hole up in his house with his dogs, his baby, and never see a single soul. And just like, he's totally like, he would live off the land if he
So
could.
he
Like, that's just
thrived in COVID. I mean, he
survived it.
thrived
Yes.
probably.
Oh, oh, I'm telling you, he, like, loved it. It was, like, an excuse to not see people, and he was just all for it. So for me, I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So constantly we had that conversation. I was like, "You don't understand. I'm home with this brand new little baby and I love her more than I ever even knew possible, but I'm freaking bored." Like, people don't say it, but new little babies, when it's just you, you're in the middle of a pandemic, you can't go out, you can't go to classes and meet other moms, you can't do any of this stuff. And I was just
Right.
stuck, holed up at home all the time with this girl. And like, there's only so many times I can watch her try and roll from her back to her tummy unsuccessfully, like again, it was like,
Right.
so it was a very, very, very tough transition for me because I knew that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom for her, and I know how good if we could make that work, financially and otherwise, then I wanted to do that, but I also, like I said, it was a really tough thing. So, when she was about 9 months old, I was like, "You know what? I've had this thought for this book since 2017 when I was working at that inpatient psych hospital,
Uh-huh.
and I've kinda written it a little bit and then shelved it and then kinda picked it back up and shelved it, and then this time I was like, "No, this is how I am gonna find some integration, some balance into, like, my world and my life and the things that I care about," and I'm like, I love doing research, I love reading research articles, I like writing, I liked what I did, and I liked, being able to provide some of those, like, tools and tactical, things that people can use to help their mental health, especially, I mean, the pandemic made everyone's mental health so much worse, like, the
Yeah.
numbers are just horrifying. I felt so guilty that I wasn't practicing, and I'm like, we have a shortage of therapists, people are waiting months to get in, and I should be using my skill set and my trade to provide for, the world, like, that's what I wanna do is I wanna be able to give back, I wanna be able to help people, I wanna be that ear, and, so I felt a lot of guilt both ways. It's like when you're a stay-at-home mom, it's like you're guilty for staying at home because you're not providing, you know, like, you're not working, and then if you are working, you feel bad for not being at home with your baby, it's just a constant battle, so this was my way of integrating, that into my life, so I wrote the book through nap times and bedtime and
Oh,
I'm very
wow.
lucky, I have a village, and so, my mom and my husband's parents have been very helpful, and it was a very fun thing for me, like, it wasn't I just really enjoyed the process, so that's how
That
I've
is
kind of
great.
yeah.
'Cause you don't
Yeah.
always hear that with people writing books. They're like, "Yeah, I wanted to do it, but the process I didn't enjoy, or it was really hard," or, so that's really great to hear,
Yeah, it
it's
was
refreshing.
very super fun, and I didn't know how fun it was gonna be, but I did, I was, like, wholehearted, like, I'd get to go like, Tuesdays were my day, I get to go to the library and work for 4 hours, and it was, like, so exciting, and I loved it. It was really therapeutic for me because I was learning along the way too, and
Mhm,
I was, I haven't mentioned this, but there's actually 33 people also interviewed in the book
mhm.
that speak to their specific niches and their expertise in fields that I'm not as familiar with, and so, talking with those people was really, really cool and just learning from them too, and I'm such a learner I just love that, so yeah, it was super fun. Anybody that wants to write a book, do it. I love it. I'm so here for it.
Well, that brings us to the next question is about the format of the book. So, tell us a little bit about that. I know you talk about it being like coping skills, and so does it have the same humor as your website, and is it about different coping skills? You talked about it having different people. So, tell us a little bit about the format of it.
Yeah, definitely. So when you start the book, like I would say everyone should read the introduction. It just kind of gives a good overview of kind of where we're standing, just kind of like the over prescription of medications because of the overwhelm of primary care providers. I think what's
Mhm.
happening right now and has been for a while is that people are feeling this overwhelm, feeling this anxiety, and instead of knowing or understanding the root cause of it or making lifestyle changes or implementing coping skills, they go to their provider, which is a good thing to do, but then these providers are just super overwhelmed by the amount of patients they're expected to see, dictated by the bigger system of insurance company, et cetera, then it's like, well, here's a prescription. And
Mhm.
sometimes medication is absolutely the right choice for people. I am totally not anti medication. But if you have mild symptoms, the, it it's not effective. The medication isn't effective. One of my girlfriends is like the classic example of this. It's like she might drink and then like have a fun night with her friends or whatever, but drink a little too much and then all of a sudden she wakes up and she has the anxiety where she's just a little hungover, a little anxious about it, like what, and then it just kind of is a perpetual cycle. And instead of making like the small change of like, okay, well maybe just stop at 2 glasses of wine instead of 4, it's like, well, I'll take a pill because that's easier, you know. Um, love her
Right.
dearly, but like it's not the best choice. And so
Right.
that's true for a lot of people, and not just with the drinking thing, but just in general. It's like we're busier now than ever. Our lives are just all consumed. And so I think, anyway, so I digress, but set it up the way that people can kind of understand. And then you don't actually have to read the book in succession if you don't want. You can kind of choose and be like, oh, this coping skill sounds really interesting. I'd like to learn about that. And you can skip to chapter, 77 or whatever if
Okay.
you want. I think it is helpful to kind of read through the whole thing. It's a really easy read. It's not, I mean, there's definitely like there's funnies and there's puns and there's whatever in there and jokes and what have you, but it's structured. So there's literally 99 coping skills. And then
Oh,
yeah, and they're broken down into 11 categories. So it's a little easier to digest because I know, like, if you just saw like a huge list, you're like, oh, that's overwhelming. But it's broken down well in that if you're looking for something more physical, go to the move your body section and it talks about that kind of stuff. And then, or if you're looking for more like mindfulness techniques or what have you, then there's a mind body connection section and you can look at that. And then, so there's different things. But what I would advise people on is, one, I would love for people to read the full thing if they're, but if you're just like, no, I just want to kind of like do my choose your own adventure type thing, then by all means go for it. But there's some things in there that it's like you just have to be really open-minded. Like sometimes like for example, I have knitting or needlework technically. So knitting, crocheting, quilting, whatever. And some people are like, "Oh, I'm not an 80-year-old woman, like that's not for me." But there's so much research to back up. And there's a huge community of knitters that are,
oh yeah.
not 80 years old. It's just, and every coping skill is backed by research. And so I discussed the research a little bit, really briefly, but just kind of how it's been, clinically proven that it's helpful. And then at the end of this chapter, so each chapter is only like 2, 3, maybe 4 pages at most. And I then share either how I've implemented the coping skill kind of in my life and how I found it to be helpful, how I've used it with clients and how the client has found it to be helpful, or like I said, one of those 33 people that I interviewed. So a third of the coping skills are interviews, and then how those people have either, turned it into maybe their career, or how they just use it in their side time or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all really cool. I don't even know why I didn't think about with the title there being not actually 99 coping skills. I don't even know why I didn't think of that. Okay, really quick, you were talking about the knitting. My mom, I don't think it's knitting. I think it's just like needlework, but she at night, and I don't think she would mind me sharing this, and she's very open about her anxiety or mental health journey, any of that. She has, it almost looks like a cross stitch ring, like a
Mhm.
ring that you put cloth in. And at night, if she's watching TV or anything that she's doing, instead of having anything where like me, my sister, I know that my mom is, we're pickers. Like we'll pick at our fingers or anything like that with anxiety. Well,
Mhm.
she will take a needle and she will just go back and forth. She's not even making anything. She just takes the needle and thread and just goes back and forth.
Mhm.
And it's a way for her to do that instead. And it's a coping mechanism.
Totally.
And it's very similar to what you're saying. Instead of knitting, it's just sort of a needle and thread. And she'll show me sometimes, like, she's like, look, I'm not even making anything. It's just, she just
Mhm.
goes back and forth. And it's just a way for her to do that instead.
It's super cathartic. It is
Yeah.
so like the rhythmic, it just people love it. And what I love most about like that one particularly is if you're doing that, like you're saying, your hands are busy. So we
Hmm.
can't be on our phones scrolling social media late at night, right? We
Yeah.
can't be doing these other things with our hands that like we don't need to be, whatever. So like that's perfect. Throw on a movie, throw on whatever, and just knit or just crochet or exact
Yeah.
whatever. And it's awesome. And like, and then if your mom wants to make something awesome, not whatever, but like you can have a scarf by the end of it. You can have a sweater
Yeah.
by the end of it. I mean, right? Like it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And so there's just a bunch of things like that. And a lot of them are So I tried to be very, very mindful of the individual. I want this to be, you know, a uniquely you thing. And so it's really important to find what doesn't work for you just as well as it is to find what does work for you.
Yeah.
And so, you know, people might like, I have rock climbing in there, and that's one of my like, I love going to REI and going to their rock wall, and there's a professional
Ah.
belayer, and I'm not good at it. Let me just preface this. I'm off, like, I'm not even like, I think I've done the intermediate wall like once. Like literally like the last time I was there, I was climbing next to a 7-year-old and she was beating me. Like I'm terrible at it. But I love it and I think it's so fun. So, and for me, it's like, it is awesome. I brought my husband one time. He was like, No, not like, he's afraid of heights. He was like, I mean, I'll try it, but no, like, he hated it. And like, I think I say in there, like, people might look at rock climbing and be like, Lindsay, you have rocks for brains. Like, literally, I'm not doing that. Totally fine. If that's not for you and that's more anxiety producing, then, you know,
Then don't
don't
do that
do
one.
rock climbing.
Right.
But, like, there's a lot of stuff that, like, you can just do either, you know, sitting at home, sitting at your desk, at work, whatever. Like, there's specific deep breathing techniques that I have. There's, body scanning. There's just a lot of, like, things that, like one of the things is disc golf. Super great way to get
Yeah.
outside, get exercise. There's courses anywhere you go. I mean, they're really
Yeah.
accessible, and all you need is maybe a $20 frisbee, and you can go and it's like super fun and it's really good for you. And I actually interview a professional disc golfer, and she has like such good things to say, and it's like so interesting. But I'm like, it's like, that's not like a weird thing. If you want to go to a disc golfing course by yourself or go with a group of friends, like you can do it either way. And
Yeah.
those are the types of things that I was really thoughtful of. It's like I wasn't sending people to the dog park without having a dog. Like that's
Yeah.
weird and you can't do that. So like, or you
Yeah.
need, you know, something like that. So yeah, so I really wanted to make it something that like each person could access on their own, that was affordable, that was, you know, all these things. And so
Oh my gosh, I love
yeah,
this. I love
yeah.
this. And I love that it just gets you, well, first of all, it's different, you know, it accommodates different budgets, it accommodates different things, but it
Mhm.
just gets you thinking out of the box. And what I love is that I don't have to think about it. I can just
Totally.
go in there and find one. It's like, oh, I love
That's
this. This is great.
that's one of the biggest things for me is like when we are in, so like if you're in like a calm state of mind, you're very rational for the most part,
Yeah.
right? People are pretty rational. But once your anxiety hits, or once you're stressed, or once you're in these like heightened states, all of a sudden we're not so rational. And we just
Right.
like, our brain has these blocks, and it's like, I don't even know what I like anymore. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what works for me. You're just kind of stuck. And so to have just like this guide, like this literal guidebook for you to be able to open
Yeah.
up and be like, oh, like even me, I mean, and I'm somebody that's, you know, does this professionally. When I'm in a really, really anxious state, I like totally forget that I have the ability in this whole toolbox of coping skills. So when I have something that's, you know, right on the bookshelf, I can literally just grab it and be like, oh yeah, this is something that I love. This is a good reminder. This is something that's going to help me. Because I would say, like, if people can try and practice, you know, the skills that they seem interested in when they are in a more relaxed state, if you can practice it a little bit more before you get to that heightened state, you're gonna be a little bit better off. But I
Right.
do, I'm just like, I mean, my husband and I were on a road trip. It was like torrential downpours. We had a boat that we had borrowed that we were bringing up to the lake, and I was just, I mean, I could just feel it. Like the panic was just coming up my throat, and I could just feel like I was so anxious. And I sat like that for like 40 minutes before I
Oh,
realized, like, what am I doing? Like there's things that I can literally just do sitting here. The weather is out of my control. My husband was driving, so the driving was out of my control. Like everything was out of my control. So I was like, what can I control? Oh, my breath. Oh, my I could
mm,
reset my vagus nerve. Like just things like that where it's like, I think once people kind of like, once it's pointed out to them, it's just so much
mhm.
easier to actually implement it intentionally and do it well.
Yeah. You
Mhm.
have great resources on your website too that we have found super helpful, like the self-reflection journal prompts, and these might be
Mhm.
things that are in your book, but the progressive muscle relaxation. Jerry, is very open about this, that his therapist has taught him
Mhm.
the progressive muscle relaxation, and he talks about how helpful that is for him. I mean, I think he does it most mornings.
Good.
Just,
Yeah.
it helps him work through anxiety. So when I saw that on your website, I was really excited about that because he just goes on and on about how much that has helped him work through anxiety.
You know what I love about water? Well, other than living by it.
Well, there are a million things to love about water. The sea life, the healing properties, part of the Earth's atmosphere.
Okay, all that, but I love drinking water.
Well, of course. But did you know that humans can only live a few days without water?
Yes, yet so many people live a dehydrated lifestyle.
Well, Liquid IV makes it super easy to stay hydrated.
Hey, folks, Liquid IV isn't scary. There aren't any IVs involved.
No, Liquid IV is a hydration multiplier. It's a powder form, an electrolyte mix that you just add to your water. It delivers 2 to 2.5 more hydration than water alone.
They have all kinds of flavors you can choose from, and they have some with energy multiplier and immune support. Also benefit, they are non-GMO, gluten-free, soy-free, and dairy-free.
If you're someone who either has trouble getting your water in or maybe just wants to get in the express lane with your hydration, you should definitely try Liquid IV.
For our listeners, if you go to their website, liquid-iv.com, and use code ARNERADVENTURES, you can save 25% off of your order and get free shipping.
That's awesome. We'll link it in the show notes too. Liquid IV, fueling life's adventures. So I know you have a lot of people in your book and that you've interviewed, and I don't know if it's one of those people, but overall, whether it's mental health or just life in general, who inspires you most?
Oh, that's a good question. Like, Brene Brown is like one of my idols, obviously. I mean, she's a social worker. She's like totally in the research thing. So I love her. But I think like for people that I know or just anybody that's going for like what they want to do and doing it well, like I just think that like anytime I'm just so inspired, like women in general, they're my people. And I just like, especially with like how far we've come with a lot of like the like women's rights stuff and just like things like that. And I don't know. There's so many people I could like list here. My cousin is one of like my highest like role models. I've just always looked up to her. She was like the big sister I never had. I just loved her. So I feel like her and like Jenna Kutcher is one that
I
she's
love Jenna Kutcher. I love
Yes.
Jenna Kutcher.
And
Yeah.
she's putting out a book soon, and I'm on her launch team. So like, there's so many women that I think that are starting to talk about the mental health. Like anybody that's kind of in that space, I love it, and the conversation just gets me so fired up. It's like totally what drives me. And so, yeah, all those people are just without a doubt. I love them. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So are there any emerging trends or discussions in mental health currently that you're excited about or anything that gets you going positively about mental health?
So many. I think just in general, we've come really far in talking about it. I think people are getting a lot better at talking about it. For me, in the stage of life that I'm in, definitely postpartum stuff, any postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, postpartum rage. I'm so here for the conversation because it wasn't talked about for so long.
Right.
But I think that's true just for generalized anxiety. I mean, any of that. And I think we're actually to the point where people don't talk so much, I would say, about depression. It's more like, and maybe it's because for anxiety, whether it's diagnosed or not, everybody knows that feeling of anxiety. Everybody has felt anxious at some point in their life. It may not be clinical, but we can all empathize with that so much. Whereas like depression is like, I've been sad, but that's not depression. So I think it's like, but we need to get a little bit better about talking about that. But any of that, the stigma stuff that's being reduced feels so good. And I want to be a part of that conversation. I want people to feel comfortable, and I want, like this to get bigger. Like I want corporations to be like, yeah, let's normalize taking a mental health day and just taking a break. Like we need
Yeah.
that. And so any of
Yeah.
that stuff is so, so powerful, I think, for everyone, for the individual, for
Yeah,
sure.
you are right. I didn't think about that we have normalized the conversation about mental health, but people are hesitant in talking more about depression. You're so right
Mhm,
about that. That people will
mhm.
bring up anxiety really quickly, but not not depression as much. That's interesting.
Yeah. And I think it's sometimes it's even kind of turned into like a joke, like, oh, having another cup of coffee, just really wanting to let my anxiety run wild today, stuff like that, where it's
Yeah.
almost too far. So it's like we kind of have to find the happy medium, and we'll get there. But
Yeah.
I definitely, and I've just noticed that for sure. I've also noticed a lot of maybe it's just what I'm seeing, and again, it's dependent upon what you follow and what have you. And so social media from that standpoint, I'm seeing a lot more, especially adult women being diagnosed with ADHD,
Mm,
um, which manifests really similarly to anxiety. And so I think a lot of people either have been misdiagnosed or what have you. So it's just that conversation has been really interesting to me. I've just noticed that trend a little bit too, that
mm.
more people have been, that's just kind of come up. And so it's
Yeah.
really it's interesting. I'm curious to see where it's gonna go. I don't have, a lot to say other than I do think the symptoms can manifest similarly. And some people absolutely love having a diagnosis. They love the label. They love having words to say like, okay, this makes so much sense to me and it feels really validating to them. And other people would like to stay away from a label with, a
Yeah.
10-foot pole, and that's totally fine. And I want people to know that both is wherever you're at, meet yourself where you're at, because you don't need to attach super hard to a label or to a diagnosis if it's not helpful for you.
Right.
Because it's not forever. It doesn't have to be forever.
Yeah.
So it's, and so I think that's sometimes where people get caught up is like, oh, well, if I have generalized anxiety disorder, I'm going to have it forever. And it's like, well, no, there's things that you can do to get out of that, and you're not going to have to be in therapy forever if you don't want, or what have you. So yeah, all of that is just, I could talk about this stuff for days
Right.
on end. I love it. I just love it.
Well, you may have answered the next question about what recommendations would you recommend to the mental health system? And I know that's a really huge, broad question, but if you could make, even small recommendations, but, you may have already answered that. But are there other things that, you would make, even if they're small
Yeah,
or
you're
large?
right. It is there's like endless amounts that I would change.
Yeah.
But just to keep it for time's sake, I will say, like, so I'm actually on my county's mental health advisory committee.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing we did last year, what I think is so cool, is we've actually so we make recommendations to our commissioners about
Mm-hmm.
what's going on in the mental health world and our committee does both children and adults. But for the adult side of it, we made the recommendation that a social worker is hired on full time at the police station with a police law enforcement.
Oh,
And
okay.
so when a call comes in and it's mental health related, that the social worker can either accompany a squad car, or if it's a safe situation, the social worker can just go herself, defuse or mitigate the situation as necessary. And it was one of the best recommendations I think we've ever made. We're actually hiring on another full-time social worker soon. And so it's just, there's we cannot expect everyone to know everything. We just
Yeah.
can't. And law enforcement isn't trained properly in mental health. And,
Right.
I would argue it would be really hard to get them properly trained in mental health along with all the other things that they're expected to do. And having that social worker, having that person, do that. So I think doing a little bit more of that, having more mental health conversations and having more integrative care across, whether it's in schools, in the police force, wherever it is, I think would be really, really cool, really, really great, and I think super, super helpful. I think it's just, so many people have been deterred from going to jail because they're having a psychosis episode and there's no reason,
Yeah.
like, jail, that's not gonna help them. So they can
Yeah.
instead get the proper treatment that they need quicker, and things like that, streamlining things. So that's just one. I have about 30,000 others
Oh,
that I
I'm
can just,
sure.
like, think of off the top of my head, but that's probably, I just think integrating more mental health conversation stuff earlier in different disciplines would be awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I 100% agree. And you may have already answered this, but on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being easy peasy, lemon squeezy, 10 being the hardest thing you've ever done, how would you rate writing this book?
I would probably say a 5. Like,
Okay.
I think, like, there was definitely challenging times and things that I was, like, wanting to bang my head against the wall and be like, "Oh my god, this is so frustrating." But overall, I think the whole thing was so fun. Um, so it depends on the day. Some days I would probably tell you
Yeah.
a 1, and some days I would tell you 10. So I think we'll just meet in the middle, and I'll say a 5. And because it posed challenges, but
Yeah.
I'm a problem solver. I love challenge, so bring it on. And
Yeah.
yeah, I would say a 5,
Would
probably a
you ever
healthy
write
5.
another one, or is it too early to ask that?
Oh gosh, I would love to. I don't. I want though so badly to just focus on this one being successful, and because I
Yeah.
like this book for me started as a passion project. It was like this is my outlet. It's just fun for me. Like maybe 3 people in the world will read it, maybe my mom and maybe my husband. Like I don't know. Then I was like, God, this is good. Like wait, I
Yeah.
kind of like it. And so now I'm like, gosh, this could actually be a really helpful thing for people, a really helpful resource and
Yeah.
guide. And so now I'm like, okay, let's actually just focus on this one. And then, I mean, I would never say never. I have, I've had a couple ideas come up here and there, but I'm just not even going to touch it. Like, no writing for me. Again, I shouldn't say never, but like probably for a good year. And I just want to
Yeah.
see what this one can do and where it's gonna go. And then, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe down the road and as I get more experience and who knows? Who
And
knows?
see where the need is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
How do you practice self-care?
I mean, it kind of depends, but for me, the biggest thing is getting outside. I would say
Mhm.
like 90% of the time, if I'm feeling anxious, if I'm ruminating on stuff and I just can't, whatever, get me on a walk outside. We live in the river valley, so we have like a nice trail in the back, which is like all woods, birds, everything. It's like my favorite. So,
Oh, that's
um,
awesome.
but really, I think it comes down to intentionality. Like
Mhm.
we can't care for ourselves if we're not being intentional about it, whether you have 5 minutes or 55 minutes or more. It doesn't matter. You just do with what you have and be intentional about taking those deep breaths, be intentional about getting outside, be intentional about the things
Yeah.
that you're choosing to do for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
All right, so we are at the rapid fire for Lindsay. Number 1, sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Okay. Go to bed early or sleep in?
Go to bed early for sure.
Okay. Wine or coffee?
Oh, honey. Oh. Well, I'm pregnant, so I will say coffee right now because that's my option.
Okay. All right. Handwritten letter or email?
Oh, handwritten letter for sure.
I agree. I love a handwritten letter.
Love
Oh,
them.
I do too. Okay. And this is, kind of because the title of your book is why I asked this. Jay-Z or Kanye?
Oh, Jay-Z for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you better choose Jay.
I would be offending people, I'm sure, if I didn't choose him.
Okay. How do you recharge? Social time or alone time?
Social time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paper book or audio?
Mm. I would love to say paper book and before kids, paper book, but now definitely I have to do audio more often. But
Yeah.
if one day again I will have a lovely book in my hand and
I
warm cup of
know.
coffee during the
I'm the
sunrise.
same
It'll be
way.
lovely.
I really love a paper book. Like I love a paper
Mhm.
book, but for convenience sake, it's so much, easier
Mhm.
sometimes. Okay.
Yeah.
Your reading location preference. Would you rather read on a beach or outdoors or cuddling on a couch?
Gosh, probably like a crisp fall morning outdoors. A beach is a little too hot for me if I'm basking in the sun. I just am sweaty and then I'm dripping on the book, so that's not cute. So if I'm outside, I want it to be like a little crisp with a blanket, maybe.
Okay.
Otherwise inside with a blankie
Okay.
and
I like
a
how
yeah.
you paint the picture for us.
Yeah,
Like you go ahead and it's that Starbucks Instagram photo with the book.
It is, it's me. It's me. Hi, I'm here.
Okay. All right. What would be your outdoor preference? Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Okay. And
Mhm.
then the most important question, ketchup or mustard?
Mustard.
Okay.
I'm a little shocked that I say that, but mustard.
I, I agree. And I feel like we're rare. Like I feel like most people
I
immediately say ketchup, but
I think you're right, but no, it kind of sounds good. Maybe I'll have some fries and mustard later. I
put
like
it in your
that.
head. Okay, and then this is the question that we ask everyone. What
Mm.
does a life well lived mean to you?
I It's so funny. Like I think everyone's version of success is so different, and for me, it's just whatever makes you happy and that you're doing it. And so for me, it's like spending time with my family, quality time with my family and my friends, really making sure I'm investing in those relationships and seeing the things and doing the things that I want to do. So I love traveling and I love experiencing new things, and I want to instill that in my babies. And so all I just think all of that is like just really maybe, investing in those connections with culture and people and relationships and just being connected with the earth even. I just all of it. I just love that.
That is a fabulous answer. I love that answer. Okay. Well, how can our listeners find you and be in the know when the book releases and when they can purchase it?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So the book it will be released on July 5th this year. So we are getting there.
Almost
And
there.
you can the easiest way to find it will be Amazon. And then you can also find me at my website, which is Coping with Lindsey. It's my MEY, so copingwithlindsey.com. And then that's also me on Instagram is Coping with Lindsey.
Okay. Well, we're going to share all
Yeah.
of that in the show notes and we're going to share it on all of our platforms and our newsletter. And thank you so much for your time today. This was an honor and fun.
Thank you. It was so fun. I love chatting with you.
Well, I hope that you all enjoyed Lindsey Konchar as much as I did. I mean, Jerry, you weren't here for the podcast episode, but the recording of it anyway. But I just love her. I think and I said this during the episode, and now Jerry has been a part of, listening to this several times, but we love when someone can help normalize the conversation of mental health.
Yeah, definitely. And she's done it as good as anybody with this stuff. And I was drawn right in from what I heard after. Of course, I wasn't there, but hearing the conversation between her and Shannon, I thought she was really interesting, and her backstory was really interesting too. She's really funny, which I think is important. To draw people in, you got to know to balance the serious stuff out.
Yeah.
With a little humor, if you want to draw people in and keep them listening.
Yeah.
A little humor will take the edge off, and then people go, "Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is worth lending my ear to."
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think if you see a book that says, 99 coping skills, are you going to be more drawn to that? Or are you going to be drawn to, I got 99 coping skills and being a bitch ain't one? I mean, I'm going to be more drawn to that.
Oh, yeah. Naturally. Yeah.
And just her website. I think that she, yes, her backstory, everything about how she took the time to say, okay, how can I be of service and how can I be really helpful during this time period? And well, okay, let me put my skills to use and let me write a book. I just really, I can't wait for it to come out. I'm so excited for July 5th that I can hardly stand it. I know that her launch party is in person. I hope that she has some kind of a virtual situation because I think it would be great if we could be there virtually.
Oh my, yeah, those are fun.
Yeah. Maybe we can talk her into live streaming it somehow.
Yeah.
If so, we'll be sure to keep all of you posted. But we are going to make sure that we put all of the resources that you can access Lindsey, the way to, access her website, her on Instagram, because on Instagram, she is keeping us all in the loop, what's going on with purchasing her book, her launch, everything. And we're, of course, if you sign up for our newsletter, we are going to make sure that we keep everybody in the loop of that as well. As always, you can find us at arneradventures.com and on Instagram at arneradventures, also linked in the show notes.
So until next time, enjoy the journey that you're on. We're wishing you lots of adventures.
Bye.